We're going to go through three items today, three sort of new features. Reporting is where we'll start. This has been an oft-requested feature by many customers over the years. And we'll talk a little bit about the first phase of reporting that we launched a couple of weeks ago that allows you to kind of enable reports at both the organizational level and individual chart level. And Fuzal will take us through that. Then I'm going to take you through the governance chart feature. This is still in beta. This is kind of a new chart type, a little bit different from what we've done with traditional charts or matrix charts, mostly focused on boards of directors or other boards that a company might have or want to publicize. So the initial beta feature is just kind of the setup of that, and I'll take you through that, show you how that works. And then the final thing we'll show you is community build. This is a feature that was requested by a large pharmaceutical company a couple of years ago, and we've built it out now. And what community build does is it allows you to invite people with an email and a link and allow them to create their own initial role and setting in the chart and say who their manager is, so that if you have 200 people or so and they all fill that out, then the chart sort of builds itself through the community. So those are the items we're going to start with, or we're going to go through today, and we're going to start with reporting. So I'll just jump to the reporting slide here, and Fuzal is going to take this away, and then we'll do a little switch while I stop sharing and he starts sharing. So if you see the screen go away, it's just a switch over so he can actually show the demo piece after this slide. All yours, Fuzal.
Thank you, Brett, and welcome everyone to the webinar on these new features. The first one we will be covering is reporting. And as Brett mentioned, this was a pretty asked feature over time. So I'll just take you over what these reports are in Organimi, and then we'll learn how to create them, how to enable these reports and export them for comparison purposes, analysis if needed. And yes, moving forward, we will go ahead and do that on the interface itself. So just to begin with, reports in Organimi allow you to visualize your data and track people's status over time. That's people's stats over time. They also are two types of reports in Organimi that you can create. One of them is the organization level reports, and the other one is the chart reports. Now, organization reports collect data and generate metrics at the organization level, such as the number of charts, the number of people in the talent pool or in the organization, etc. Chart level reports collect data and generate metrics at the chart level, such as the number of roles in the chart, the number of vacancies, and the number of departments, etc. Hence, you can download, share, and set up email updates for these reports. We'll learn how to do them in a bit. Also, reports in Organimi is a premium feature, and since these features are beyond core org charting features, hence they are set up as a premium feature. Anyone who's on a basic plan would need to upgrade for accessing this feature. Hence, if you need help with upgrading, you can definitely reach out to us. I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen now. So here we are on the demo one, and I'm gonna switch to the Organimi interface to begin with. And on the left-hand side, you can see there's a list of organizations, and I've selected one organization called My Org 2022, and this org has a number of charts. And we will be looking at the settings and how to enable the reporting. Now, something to note is that you must enable reports and reporting for data collection to begin. And if you do not want to use reporting currently, then you may want to enable it for future use. In that sense, Organimi will keep generating these reports for these various dates, and then you can use those dates as a criteria to compare those reports. Now, you can turn these reports on and off at any time, and these reports can be accessed under the settings. So I'm just going to go to settings under the org, and I'm going to say reporting. And up here, I can enable the report settings. The first thing I'll do is enable organization reports since I want them, and also chart reports. And these are currently only available for traditional charts. The next option for me is to enable the reporting for all charts, so just cherry pick, let's say, my org chart in this list. I'm going to do it for all charts as I like this data to be collected in the background. So in the future, if ever needed, I will have access to these reports. What else I can do is enable email notifications. I'm just going to enable this toggle switch, and I'm going to add my email where I'm going to request for, let's say, a notification for these reports on my email. And I can hit a comma and then add multiple emails. So all of them would receive this notification. Now, the frequency can be set. It's set to daily by default, but I can make it weekly or monthly if that's my preference. Now, before we go to view the reports, I'll actually show you how these email notifications would look like. Let me switch my screen to the next email section. Up here, I received an email yesterday saying that my first report is ready, and it told me there are some attached files that I can download. The files at the bottom, and I can download these and open this up to see the comparisons, or I could just click on the View Detailed Reports tab on the email. It will take me into Organimi, and I will have access to those emails. Of course, I can change the settings for these emails, and if I click on that, it will bring me to this interface where I can adjust those settings. Now, let's say if this is something you need additional help with, then you can click on this question mark and it will take you to the help document on a help center where it has listed all the steps that you can follow to enable reports and then view them. Once this is done, you can access reports by clicking on the report tab on the dashboard on the left, but I like to click view reports. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And now it takes me into the reporting interface itself, where there are different types of reports that I can generate to begin with. And if you look at the pick list on the report type, it mentions organization report. So if I click on it, I can toggle between chart reports and organization reports. And of course, I can choose the organization that which I'm looking for generating these reports. And I can then choose the metrics that I want to populate under these reports. If I click on all selected, it will show me all the metrics that are available. And of course, I can enable or disable them if needed. Now, the next step would be to generate the first and the second report to compare with. And before we go into how to select the dates, if you enable reports, you will have to wait for at least 2 days for those reports to be generated, as you would need the first and the second comparison date. And moving forward, you will have a consecutive generation of reports for each date, and you can click on the first report or the second report and then toggle between the dates. For now, we see October 19 is the date, which is the first report, and the second one is for October 20. Of course, I can navigate back and I can say, okay, I want to compare this with September 29. However, I can always go ahead and make these changes, and I will have a way to export the comparison by clicking on the tab on the right. Below the reports comparison is the metrics tab, where it actually shows me all the metrics that relate to this particular organization under the first and the second date. And I can obviously click on these metrics to expand or contract them. For example, it shows me the number of charts, the number of people in the talent pool. And when I export this data, it will show me a list of all these variables and the way they've been segregated based on dates. Now, there's also a difference column, which shows me if there was any change in the chart or the organizational data over time. And I guess there is. I added 2 new people in the talent pool on October 20, and you can see here the difference as +2. And if I remove them, of course, it will show up as a -2 or 3 difference based on what I did. If I scroll to the bottom, there's something called reports history. And in this case, I can export the history of the reports from the first day that I turned them on all the way to the current date if these reports were enabled for this period of time. Before we look into how these exported versions appear in a CSV format on our screens, I'll show you another type of report that we discussed at the beginning, which is the chart report. So I'm going to click on report type and enable chart reports. And for this particular organization, I can choose the charts that I wish to enable the reports for. I've created a bunch of charts, but I'm interested in this one called My Org Chart, as this one has the relevant data that I'm looking for. And of course, I can click on metrics. And if you notice, there's a lot of different options here that weren't available under the organizational report. And hence, this is a deeper level, which is a granular analysis of your chart data based on dates. Of course, if I go down, then I will notice that there are additional metrics that are available. I can expand levels. For example, I can look at all the locations present and the people under those locations. And if there was a difference, like up here in this location called Asia, I added another person and you see +1 as the difference. Now, all of this data can be exported, including the vacancies, the roles, number of people, and their managers by clicking on Export Comparison. What else I can do is I can go to report history, and then I have a list of all the dates that these reports were generated for. And I think there's 48 of them in total. What I can do is click on the 3 dots next to a date, and I can say add to compare first. And then I'll go ahead, click 3 dots and another reporting date, and I'm going to say this is the second one. Now, if you notice, the green dot shows up for the first and the purple one for the second, and then these 2 reports will be compared. And I can go ahead and download these individual reports, or I can just click export history, and a list of all of these reports based on dates will be downloaded. So first, let's go ahead and look at the comparison for these reports. I'm going to go switch my screen to the org comparison report. Now, this is just one that was created for the 2 dates, which is the October 19th and October 20th. And it shows the difference and some specs, the metrics that I had selected to generate these reports. Now, if I look at the chart report, then I have a bunch of different parameters, but it's very similar in terms of the dates, where I'm comparing October 19 with October 20, and then the difference based on the groups and the metrics of those values that I have selected. And yes, all the data we saw in those expanded columns or sections is now listed on this report. You can share this, let's say for analysis, you can have different sections and can create additional data for understanding how the reporting structure or the charts are being updated over time. Another type of report was the history, which is this on the screen. This is the org history that I exported, which is a reporting history. And yes, it started on September 28. That's the first time I turned on reporting, and it's generating those reports every day up until October 20. There'll be one generated later today. And of course, this is the chart history report, which is the last one on the screen. And it has the same number of dates as I enabled both of them at the same time, but then it has a lot of different parameters that I can look in. And of course, I can then use these pieces of information for analysis. That's pretty much on the reporting side of things.
This is going to be a very different kind of look and feel or presentation for what we saw in reporting and in traditional charts in Organimi. So this is a new feature that was designed. We had some requests for people to say, how do I show my board of directors in the chart, because they're not actually employees of the company in a lot of instances. Other organizations that aren't companies, like educational organizations or nonprofits, also have a board of trustees or boards of directors. And there's specific rules around public company boards of directors and things that they can do. So we built governance charts as a beta to see if that's just something that people want to use and how they'd like to use it. So if you do have a board that you'd like to model, try it out and let us know what you think. And I'll take you through quickly on how this works. It basically models the members of a board of directors and the committees and subcommittees that the board would be responsible for. And I'm just going to jump in here to show you a demo of how this works. So if I have a company like 4A Painting, I can just go into my organization dashboard and create a new chart. And in the new chart dialog, just the standard build chart, but instead of a traditional or matrix chart, also, if you're not familiar with matrix charts, check those out. That's a fun feature for project teams as well. We'll click boards of directors and we'll call this my board, or let's say our board. And that will create, as you can see, this looks a lot different. So we've got the members of the board. We can simply add members. We've got a chair, inside directors, outside directors, observers, and then committees. So you can go through here one by one and add people, but I'm just going to jump to one that I already have set up. And I'm going to say, for example, we'll use Apple because everybody knows Apple, and Apple actually has a nice site here where they have a list of their board of directors with the committees and the committee charters. So we'll look at this. If I jump back to Organimi and I go back to my dashboard, you can see I've modeled Apple here, and I've got a regular chart that could be just some traditional chart of some group in Apple. This is our basic test data. And then I can jump over to the board of directors chart. I can also show you how that looks in the org dashboard. So got that little icon there. And so Arthur Levinson is the chair. Tim Cook is on the board. And then there's a number of directors here, and we've set up these committees. So this is what we call the list view, and then we have a grid view. So this is a short view of how people are set up in the board, and then the directors and who's on what committee, who's the chair of the committee. We have links to the charter, etc. So if you look at this list, you'll see everyone in there except Susan. So I wanted to add Susan, who's co-founder and director of BlackRock. And we'll add Susan to our governance chart over here. So Susan L. Wagner. So I just click add member, and Susan L. Wagner. And we'll give her a fake email address at Zengario. If you guys see that term Zengario, this is a fake company that we use as our demo company. So it's not a real company, but you'll see them around in Organimi demos. And then I can add a photo just by going out and searching for photos. Most people on Apple's board are pretty easy to find in a Google photo search. So we'll pick this photo and stretch it out a bit and save it. And save that. And then we'll say Susan joined the board in 2004, and she's an outside director. She's not the chairperson. And we did have some committees that Susan was on. So she's on the nominating committee. She's actually the chairperson of that committee and on the audit committee. So we'll add the audit committee here, and we'll make her a member, and then we'll add the nominating committee. I think that's what it was. Is that right? Yes, nominating committee chair, and we'll make her the chairperson. And if she had a social media link, like a LinkedIn URL, we could add that here, and you'll see that she shows up here, and she also shows up here in a line in this. If we look at the grid view, this gives you a bit more detail on each of the people, just a different view of that, and shows the committees in more graphical form. So each of the committees, if we wanted to add a committee for, I don't know, it's a good committee. Let's say we're going to add a committee for succession planning. And we can give that committee a start date. We'll start October 1st, and we'll take that to the end of the year. And then it could be ongoing. It's not a subcommittee. And then we can just simply add members from here. So we'll put Al Orr as a member of that committee, and we'll make the chairperson Alex. And we'll add one more person. Susan needs a couple more committees. So we'll add Susan. And we can upload a file here, a charter, if we had a charter for that committee. For this audit committee, for example, we have a charter. If we click on that, that'll show you the PDF that's associated with that. So that's a sense of governance charts here. The idea being this is quite a different thing for us right now. You can't import them. We don't have sharing set up or printing. We wanted to see if people find these useful, if it's something that they want to show as part of their company. You'll see if you go to the company talent pool, it just shows who these two folks at this point. But if I jump back to the actual organization people list, we didn't add the board members to the people list except for the internal board members, internal directors. And that's just a quick overview of governance charts. Again, boards of directors, boards of trustees, things like that, if you wanted to model something like that. So without further ado, we'll jump into the community build section, and I'll turn it over to Fazal.
Thank you very much, Brett. And yes, the community build, I think you give a very beautiful explanation in the start of what it is. And it is a very ask feature that I think is a very intuitive, intelligent feature to have, where you can involve members of your company to help build a chart together. So essentially, what is Community Build? It's an industry-first Organimi's Community Build feature, which allows chart owners to quickly build charts by engaging end users in the process. And this Community Build is available to all premium users. It can help you a lot of time where everybody in the company can build their own role cards and can then be added on the chart based on their reporting relationships. Hence, before we move into how to work this feature on Organimi, I'm just going to explain a few use cases, really typical ones. So essentially, organizations with 25 to 100 employees, they benefit the most from this feature because these organizations tend to be too big to build manually, but too small for CSV or Excel inputs. Also, these organizations with employees such as consultants and contractors, where personal data is not in an internal system such as employee database, community build works best. And finally, for charitable and not-for-profit organizations with volunteers, where you would want to send them this invitation so they can fill in their own information and have them be a part of the chart. Having said that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I'm just going to request Brett to switch that over. Thank you, Brett. Right, so in this demo, we will be looking at how to set up the community build in a sense where we will configure some settings, which are some security settings. So we know how people are accessing the security link that's sent to them to set up the details within their own profile, and then we'll have them view the chart using a public link that will populate once they finish including their information. So in a nutshell, individual users will receive a link. They will fill out their own info, and Organimi will automatically assemble the chart using the data input. Having said that, I'm going to switch my screen to the Organimi interface. And what I did is I created this new organization called Community Build, and I added a chart called Community Build Chart, which is a requirement wherein the system will require you to create a chart with no roles or no people in it. However, you can always start with vacant positions and roles. So essentially, I created a chart with just a basic layout of how a chart would look like if you try to manually create it on Organimi, but there's one top role and there's two direct reports. Of course, you could use the manual build feature, but since we are here for the community build, I will go ahead and demo my way of using community build, which I think is one of the best ways of how you can operate this feature. So to begin with, I will add a person in the top role, or I can build a top level banishment if needed, and then I can send the link around to have people add their information and have them be a person who's contributed to be on the chart. So I'm going to go ahead first and edit this role card, which is the top role. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a role title. Let's say I'm going to call this a fearless leader. And I'm going to go ahead and add a new person within the role card. I'm going to click this green new button, and I'm going to add a first name. Let's say I'll give my own name, which is Fuzel, and I'll add my last name, and I'm going to add my email. Yep, so Singari.com, as Brett mentioned, is this fake email domain that I'll be using, and I'm going to hit save. So now you will see myself populated on the role card with my title. If this is what I have, then I'm in a good place to begin sharing the community build interface where I will be editing the security settings and sending the link around. So before I do that, I'll delete these vacant positions as I don't need them. So yes, I clicked on the three dots and I said delete role, and I said yes. So now there's only one top role to begin with. Moving forward, I'm going to click this gear symbol, which is the setting on the chart itself. And I can click on community build under chart settings. And up here, I will have the ability to enable community build. So I'm just going to go ahead and toggle that switch, and it will then ask me to edit security settings. So I click on it, and in this case, I have an option to authenticate the chart with a domain and or password. Hence, I can do both, or I can just leave a password in this case, which will be needed to access this link. And of course, the password needs to be a combination of letters, numbers, and special characters. And for letters, you will need to include a small and a capital letter. Now, you can also include domain authorization. For example, I can say zengario.com, and everybody with this domain only can have access and can operate this link. So if I add this domain, it will be listed up here. Of course, I can add multiple domains if needed. But since this is optional, I can use one of these ways. I'm just going to use the password in this case. The next step is the advanced settings, where I would like to know what the supervisors are called for. What is the name that's used to refer to them, which is the reports to person in this particular phenomena, where I can click on this exclamation mark. It will show me what this is. And if needed, I can go ahead and change the name, where the person will be now called a manager instead of a boss. Another thing I can do is enable the administrator's name and email address on the completion page. So the person who accesses the link, completes the information, will know who sent them this link. And if they have any questions, they can reach out to them. Also, I will enable the public link to chart, where after I finish completing the section of the information I need to enter, I will have a chance to click on the link and then view the chart and see myself on it, and then understand how this process actually works. So I'm going to go ahead and update these security settings. And now it takes me to the community build settings. However, in this case, I have an access link that is generated. And this is the link that I will need to pass around. So my next steps would be to copy this link and let's say paste it in an email or a message and say that, hey, this is a link that you would need to access so and so chart on community build. And when a person clicks on the link, they will be taken to a page or an interface that looks as such. Will ask you to enter your password, which I use to set up the link. And of course, this is the welcome to your community build interface. And I'm going to go ahead and enter the password. And my next step would be to get the access link. So you want to make sure when you send the link, you also inform them about the password that they will need. Otherwise, they'll have to get back to you and ask for that password. Yep. So if you're here, what you can do is enter your email address. Now I'm just going to add a new person here. Let's say his name is James and his last name is Jacob, and he's at zengario.com. There he is. And I'm just going to go ahead and add his first name and his last name. Now, all the fields in asterisk are necessary. However, the ones that are optional can be ignored. But of course, if you want to use them, please go ahead and feel free to do that. What else I'll do is I'll add a primary job or role title, because that is an asterisk field. And I'm going to call this, let's say, a vice president. Perfect. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the manager of who this person reports to, as this is necessary for the reporting structure to be created. If let's say this is a person whose manager is not yet defined, then if a person fills this up, this form, then they will still be added into the list. And once their manager is identified based on the links being passed around and their respective manager filling up the information, they will be placed in the appropriate position. So now I'm just going to go ahead and search for the manager. I'm going to say my email is the manager. And I'm going to hit save. So before I do that, it searches for me and it tells me that, hey, yes, this is the person. It checks me, knowing that I will be the reports to person, and this is the manager that I'll be reporting to. Of course, if I'm not on the list, then I can create the manager as well on the go. So in the future, when the chart is created, I'll have the manager and the person who reports to. But in this case, we're going to use my top role as the manager, and I'm going to hit save. Now it takes me to the next screen, which shows me that the position has been added, and it thanks me to do that. Also, it shows me that James Jacob, which is the person who had the link, is now reporting to Fuzel, who's his manager. And this chart was created and maintained by so-and-so person who is the admin or the account owner. Hence, remember, is only account owners and admins can access this feature and set up this link and pass it around. So yes, please contact them if they have any questions. And if they want to view the chart, they can click on the public link, or they can close the screen and then go back to what they were doing. However, we will click on open public link and we'll see how this chart looks like and if James was actually added on the chart by filling up these details. Yep, there we go. So we see myself being on the top role, and then we see James being on the reporting relationship. And in this case, this typical top-down hierarchical org chart structure will be created based on the reporting relationships that are entered by everybody who has the link. And eventually, when everybody enters the information, the structure will be visible on this public link as well as on the actual admin or account owner interface. Also, one thing to notice here is that this is a public view, which is just a viewing interface. Like if I go back to Organimi itself and I go to the chart, then this is my interface where I can actually work and edit. And this is an account owner interface. So yes, I just reloaded this page so you can see that the charts on both the links, which is the public and the actual login, has been updated. And this brings us to conclude our exercise on using Community Build, where we learned how to set up a security link, pass it along with the password or the domain information, and then anybody will need to enter that who has that link, which is their password, fill up the information, and then be added to the chart. It's pretty simple. However, also want to re-emphasize that this feature is a premium feature only, since this is beyond the core org charting features. Hence, if you need help with upgrading, please get in touch with us. Also, we have started offering Organimi training programs, which is designed to help users on both and get up to speed on Organimi's basic advanced features to ensure that all of them can access these great premium features with ease.
I did want to take a minute or two to show you a couple other things. I'm going to go off script here, which will make Rita very nervous.
You're good. We got time.
But we added a couple of things just in the last couple of weeks that people have asked for. One thing I wanted to show you is in the chart, there's a new setting around the visual display. So we now support bottom-up charts. Some people have requested this. So you can display the chart from the bottom up if you like. It has all of the initial features. It doesn't look great if you have the photo sticking out. So you can just jump into themes here. I have a theme. If I edit the theme and I just change the way that the card looks, so I want to change the photo position. So instead of the photo position being above, if I put it on the left, that fixes up the way that looks pretty easily there. If you haven't done much with themes, there's a lot of different things you can do in themes. I usually like these lines a little bit thicker, both the cards and account, and sometimes the frame color is a little bit light, so I'll make that dark. You can even make it red or things like that, and you notice that the counts change, but make it a little darker here. So that looks a little bit better on the bottom up chart view. And again, you can just keep expanding that. And the other one is still a bit of a work in progress, but I'll show you anyway, is left to right charts. So some people want to show their chart from left to right. Right now, we still have a little bit of issue between horizontal and vertical settings because those flip on left to right versus top down. But you can start to see how you might show your chart in a left to right kind of view, if that's something that you do. And depending on how you set your card layouts up, if they're long and narrow, sort of thin and wide, it might look better on a left to right if that's something you want to look at. So this is something that a number of people have asked for as well. And still a bit of a work in progress, so you'll see some bugs on that, but we're working that through. So I just thought I'd show you those some of the things we're working on in the layout. One of the features, or one of the things we get asked a lot, is how to get more people onto the chart and kind of condense the view. So those are a couple of different ways to change around the way your views might look. If you're not familiar with this feature, you can always jump back and forth to show the 3 levels or to expand, see the whole chart. That's a quick and easy way to do that. And public shares, we're just launching the printing from public shares again. If you haven't seen print templates or manual pagination, that's something to check out as well during printing. But I can leave it there for now. If there's any other questions, we have a few minutes left. Just to recap, we showed you reporting. That's our newest feature. There's a lot of data that comes out of chart reporting. So turn that on, see what you think there. And if there are things that you've seen that or not seen that you'd like, let us know what those are. Governance charts for people who want to show a board of directors, and community build for people who want to have the actual members of the chart build the chart.